a bank account where suppose you are doing a transaction, it asks for a typical pin which only you know. So that is here it's being told something you have that's a physical object like a mobile for a security token. So here we are talking about that. Something you are or do. For example, your biometrics or pattern of behavior. So sometimes you have seen in like it's been added in different school or features like where teachers have to give their biometric for their attendance, or you have seen in different colleges like some of your colleges may also have these features, or also in different organizations where the employees have to give their biometrics for attendance or specifically any other things, or like sometimes you can see in Aadhaar you have to also give your biometrics, right? So that's all we are talking about authentication. So any type of features which you can access only by yourself may require an authentication where it will verify the person whose account you are being used or not. Okay. So another important thing, authentication versus authorization. I always have seen many people get confused about authentication and authorization. So they think that both are kind of same, but actually it's not. Okay, so authentication is the process of verifying that a user really is who they claim to be, whereas authorization involves verifying whether a user is allowed to do something. So this line might be look some very difficult to you, like you may don't understand what's going on here. So actually, let me tell you in layman terms. So suppose you are logging into your Facebook account after giving your credential, that is username and password. So what you are doing is the Facebook is authenticating your username and password and it's matching with your database. So this process is known as authentication. And after logging into your Facebook account, suppose you are changing your name or your username or your password that you are being doing after logging into your account. So this feature is known as authorization. So you can only able to change your name or any other credential in your Facebook account after you are being authenticated into it. So mainly this authorization things comes after you are being authenticated. Okay. So this is something you can understand authentication and authorization in layman terms. So that has been explained here. In the context of a website or web application, authentication determines whether someone attempting to access the site within the username Carlos123 really is the same person who created the account or not. Or once Carlos123 is authenticated, his permission determine whether or not he is authorized. For example, to access personal information about other user or perform actions such as deleting another user account. Okay. So now come to the fact, how do authentication vulnerabilities arise? The authentication mechanisms are weak because they fail to adequate protect against brute force attacks. Sometimes what happens, suppose you are trying to perform a brute force attack on a login page with a huge list of username and password, and suppose it happens like with us, the server can't handle so much of request at the same time. And when it's failing to accept such a request in a small amount of time or in a small amount of parcel, so what it's doing, it giving you directly access to its dashboard. Okay, so this type of authentication failure may occur due to poor coding, or sometimes logical flaws or poor coding in the implementation allow the authentication mechanism to be bypassed entirely by an attacker. This is sometimes referred to as broken authentication. So sometimes logical flaws in the application can also result in some broken authentication vulnerabilities. So this we will learn very soon how do they arise and how you can exploit them. Okay, so impact. So what are the impacts of the authentication vulnerabilities that arises? The impact of the authentication vulnerabilities can be very severe. Once an attacker has either bypassed authentication or has brute forced their way into another user's account, they have access to all data and functionality that the compromised account has. So suppose you mean someone has bypassed the Facebook login page and they have entered into your account, suppose. So what they can do, they can defame you, they can change your username, they can change your password, they can do some things which can result in some malicious, they can engage in some malicious activities with your account, they can post some things of terrorism, or they can post some obscene pictures, or they can do anything which will be on your hub. The whole thing that he will do or she will be come to you on your business. They are accessing your account to do this. Okay, so this can result in lot of malicious things. Okay, so if they are able to compromise a high privilege account such as system administrator, they could take full control over the entire application and potential access to internal infrastructure. So suppose they have got access to Facebook admin panel And suppose they bypass that, so what they can do, they can literally control the whole Facebook application. Like they can change anyone's data within that, or they can tamper with literally anything. So you might have seen that data breaches of like, or organization breaches you might have heard of. So sometimes they appear due to phoning admin panel of such organization. Okay, so let's move on to now practical. So first we'll learn about the different techniques that we can use for performing authentication vulnerabilities. So first let's go to one of them, which is commonly known as force browsing. So I will refer to port trigger for that. And port trigger is a very awesome website where you can perform, or you can test your skills with different type of labs in them. Okay, so generally I'll go to the authentication labs. Hmm. So I will go to this simple lab where I have to bypass the authentication to access a different account. So I have been given my credential as winner and Peter, and also been given victim's credential. So what the lab is saying, the lab's two-factor is been authentication can be bypassed. We have to obtain a valid username and password, but we do not access to user 2FA verification code. So we already know the credential of our own and a credential of our victim that we are going to hack on. Okay, so what after giving this credential, we will be asked for a verification code of the victim's account, but we will not access have to the verification code, so we have to bypass this. Okay, so let's hover over to the lab. Okay, so I will also open my buff suit. Let's start up my buff suit. Now let's go to the lab. So let's go to my account, and I will turn my proxy on for Bobsuit, and I will enter into my account. So it's asking for my 4-digit verification code. So I'll go to my email client. Okay, so we are on our account. Okay, and we can see the URL for our account is after my specific site URL, the endpoint is my account. So we'll take a close note of this endpoint. Okay, so I'll just log out. I'll go to my account once again. I will go to Carlos, and the password that has been given to us supplied. It's copied. So it's asking for a 4-digit security code. Now we don't have the email client of Carlos. Okay, so what we can do? So here I will exploit a certain vulnerability which is already present there, that is force browsing. So I will force the browser to go to the endpoint of my account that we have previously seen for our testing account. Okay, so that is on my account. I will hit enter, and as you can see, without being entering the OTP, we are being directly redirect. We are being redirect to our account of our victim, that is the Carlos, and we have successfully solved the LAM by this way. So this is process, but what we have done, the entire thing is known as force browsing, where you are forcing the browser to visit to the certain endpoint without being authenticated or without bypassing, without verifying the OTP or the additional two-factor authentication that is being implemented on the site. Okay, so this method is known as force browsing. So this is one of the method you can use in real life website to hunt for or to check for web authentication vulnerabilities. So now we'll look for another one, like another method to go for the next method, or the next thing that we will learn about or we will show is the response manipulation. You might have seen in some POCs, or maybe you are familiar with those, or maybe you are not. So to summarize what response manipulation is, so response manipulation is a technique where you are going to bypass a login page or a two-factor authentication page by changing the contents in its response. Suppose you may change the boolean value, suppose from true to false or false to true, or any change of status code, suppose 0 to 1 or 1 to 0 or 1 to 2, anything, or like changing the response itself, like the 403 forbidden or 401 unauthorized or 404 not found to 200 okay, or 302 found, or adding some JSON value like success equal to true, kind of like this. Okay, so let's look at a POC of a response manipulation. So we are on our site that its name is something like this. So what I am doing, I am already been authenticated as an user, and I am just going to my account page of that site. Now it's the page has told me to verify my mobile, like to add a certain mobile number into this account. Okay. So what I am doing here, I am trying to add a mobile number without being actually have access to that mobile number. So I am clicked on please verify mobile. Now I am going to enter any random OTP and I will click on submit. And you can see the site has told us invalid OTP because we don't have access to this mobile number or the message of this mobile number. So I will just cross it and I will again click on please verify mobile. But before that, okay, so we have done this once again. And now I will enter OTP. I will go to my Babsuit and I will click on Babsuit turn intercept on. Okay. So as we can see, after turning our intercept on, so what I did, I give any random OTP that is 123456 and I clicked on submit. Okay. I have intercept this request. And now what I will do, I just went to the action tab of Babsuit and I will intercept response to this request. Okay. So after clicking on response to this request, I click forward and we saw that in the response, we got something, a JSON parameter where it says D is to false. Now I'll change the value from false to true. And after that, I will forward the request and turn my intercept off. And after that, we can see that we have successfully verified our mobile number without actually inputting the OTP of that mobile number. So that is one of the authentication bypass, what I have told by changing the Boolean value from false to true. Okay. So that's it for this response manipulation. So sometime in place of true false, you may have to give 0 to 1 or 1 to 0 or 1 to 2 or any number values, or success equal to true from success is to false. Okay, or like 401 unauthorized by just changing it to 200. Okay, so that's it for this response manipulation technique.
Sir,
Now, yeah.
this won't be verified on the server, right? This is only for client side.
No, in this particular case, this was been verified from the server side too, because this vulnerability exists in the client side, as the server is not verifying whatever is being changed in the client side is being changed in the server side also. So this is exactly not being validated from the server side. That's why
Okay.
the vulnerability is there on the client side too. Like it's the vulnerability is there on the client side, and the server is not validating the input whatever we are given.
Okay.
Okay, so this is actually due to the not validation from server, like false validation from server side, or it's being properly not implemented. But had the server being implemented properly, like they would validate the OTP after clicking on it, so then this vulnerability would not have been happen. So you have to check. Now let's, yeah.
Working on a website that has the vulnerability, no, sir. Not every
No,
website can.
no, not every website has this vulnerability. Actually, I've seen a lot of people think that after us this, particularly this case for OTP bypass, they try to replicate this same thing on every website. Like they try to replicate this on literally Facebook, Netflix, or out, but it's not. Like they are a lot more secure. There might be this vulnerability on that website, but those have been completely, the internal security team would already have detected those. Okay, so you won't generally find this on any popular site, but on some other sites on which are not very much popular or not very much replicated, you can find those on those sites actually. So this is
Okay.
one of the techniques I have told, but actually other ways can be there for bypassing the OTPs, like I told one of these force browsing in the first video, or the first POC that I tried to do in the Portugal lab. And I will show another type of things, other methods that you can check. So this is generally what you're going. You should have a checklist when you will be testing for 2FAs. You just go through the checklist of what you need to test. What are the vulnerabilities, or how do they arise? Like kind of something like that. Okay. So moving on to the third method, that is bypassing 2FA by leaked OTP in response. So sometimes what happens is, due to the poor implementation or poor coding, what happened? The two-factor authentication code is being leaked in the response of the particular request that you are being sent after clicking on the send me OTP. Okay, so suppose there is a site where our 2FA is being on, and there is a button where it's asking for an OTP. After you click on like give me the OTP button, and in the response of that particular request, the OTP is sometimes being leaked. So we'll try to see on a certain website or a live where you can find this. Okay, so we'll go to this particular website and let's sign up for an account. Let's give any name like Samuel, and let's give any random email address. Let's give hacker@hackerrun.com. Let's give any mobile number, like, okay. So now observe very closely. I will turn my pubsud proxy on, and I will turn my intercept on. Now I will click on get code. Okay, so you can see this request. Now what I will do, I will intercept response to this request, and I will forward it. So in the response, you can see the code is being leaked. Okay, so I will copy this code and I will forward the request. You can see a verification code being sent to mobile number, but we already have the code from the response. and let's give a password for this site and click on submit. Now, if we go to the email address and put our email that we use for this, hacker@hackathon.com, and click on submit, we can see we have successfully created the account and logged into the account that we have created by bypassing the 2FA, which was being asked for our mobile number, right? So this process is known as bypassing 2FA, which is through the leaked OTP in response. So the OTP was being leaked into the response of the request. Okay. So let's turn off our browser. Okay. So next we'll learn about bypassing two-factor authentication through brute forcing. So let's go to another website. Now let's hover over to the login, and it's being asked a certain phone number. So let's type in random mobile number. Let's click on continue, and a password is being sent to this mobile number. So what I will do, I will turn my intercept on. I will give any random 4-digit password. Let's give something like 0000. I will turn my intercept on, and I will click on continue. So this is the OTP we have inputted, right? Now I will send this request to intruder, and I will select the OTP position, and I'll go to payload page. I'll click on number. So the 4-digit OTP will be 999. Let's go up to 999. That will be enough, I guess. Let's see. Let's give my step into 1. Let's give it to 9999. On we are giving it from 100 because there hardly any OTP comes between 0 to 100, like 1 to 100. So we'll start from 100. It will be comparatively less for us. Okay. So we'll go to the resource pool, and we'll give some like 200, and I will give this time as 1, and after that I will start my attack. So we'll leave it 401. It will take a lot of time, I guess. So let it run for some time, and we'll look for any 200 code in the response. Okay. So you can filter it directly out by clicking, by checking the 400 and 500. So till now, if anyone has any question, they can gently ask me.
There is already a question into the chat
yeah.
on Zoom. You can just repeat it.
Authorization versus authentication versus accountability versus privileged. Authorization versus authentication, I have already told. versus accountability versus privilege. Okay. So if we talk about the first, let's talk on the privilege. So privilege is, suppose there is a normal account and there is an admin account. Okay. So if you are able to go, or if you are able to change any activity from a normal account to a higher account or like admin account, then it's known as privilege. Something like privilege escalation. Also, you mainly will see in some sales dashboard, or like companies which actually have, or some website which gives a normal user or and give an admin user to create a workspace. So you will see in this type of website. So suppose what in that position you can create a normal account and you can create an admin account, where in the admin account you can add a large number of normal account or normal user account. Okay, so that is actually the difference between privileged thing. Okay, and another thing you have asked me about accountability. Okay, so what's accountability is generally something, the fact or the person or the condition where things are being account. Like, so how can I give an example? So suppose there is a website where you have to complete certain tasks. Hey, there are 3 to 4 tasks or 8 to 10 tasks, and you have to complete all of those tasks. So if you are able to limit yourself and can complete all of those things, then it's kind of things known as accountability. Okay, so accountability is completely different from authorization or authentication. It's completely different. And authentication verifies the identity of user service. Like, yeah, if they want to access, then application or web will first verify about user if is authentication. Yeah, and authorization determine their access, right? Yeah, that's right, Aman Gupta. Hacker program say rate limit or brute forcing on unauthenticated pages out of scope. That means login pages is out of scope. Of course, that not unauthenticated page means what? The page where you can't authenticate, but login page doesn't actually fall under it, because like if you can actually give a huge list of username and password, and you can actually like the default username, actually suppose there is a in sec list or in the word in the popular word list, you must have heard of sec list, you will see a default username and default password. Okay, but so if you are able to access any account with those default username and credentials, then that report will be valid. Unauthenticated page means exactly like the, suppose you have seen a lot of guys have, if I mean, you must be quite acquainted with the hackathon reports, so you have seen a lot of reports which will have like people try to test brute forcing on the password reset page, like testing for no date limit on those page. So that is exactly an unauthenticated page. Or they try to send like there is a contact form where they are try to check rate limit on the contact form. So that is exactly out of scope, not the login page. If you are able to log in with the default credential, that's in scope for hacker or not literally for any other bug bounty programs. Yeah. What browsing? Please, I can't hear the word. It's forced browsing. FORCED. So you are forcing a browser to visit a page by bypassing a certain authentication. Yeah, forced browsing hurts. So, sir, is this a bug? So, which bug you are talking about? Can you please tell, Mr. Pirate? How can one mitigate the previous 2 vulnerability? I will tell the mitigation part later. So, yeah, it's throwing error some kind of. So, it's still going on.
Yes, there is a question till then. If you can.
You have bypassed the OTP and sign up using another's name. So is that a bug? Yeah, if you can bypass the OTP and sign up using another's name, that will be a bug actually. But did I use that thing? I actually used the I used the username and password of that person. I just bypassed the OTP. But if you in certain site where you can bypass anything like with different username, that of course is a bug, and that will be a critical one because you literally don't have any client information. So sir, how many requests can we send at a time to a website? Depends on the website. Like in some programs, it will be mentioned, and if it's not mentioned, then do as you wish. Just don't break the site. Then it will be on to you. Force browsing is when you change some URL parameter or JSON to direct yourself to a page which you're not authorized to visit. Yeah. Exactly. You're right. Does Copenhagen Sun is vulnerable to vote? So it might be actually. Once I checked, it was vulnerable. So right now I don't know if it's still vulnerable or not. But there's time it was vulnerable. So right now, actually, till it didn't give me any 200 okay response. I guess this request are not went on. I should send this. So this is our thing has been completed, I guess. So just manually, I will just try to send this request to repeater, and I will check the response. That's false. Okay, so it's giving me right now. Maybe they have patched this particular vulnerability, but there was a time when it was actually few days ago. It was not. Anyway, so what you had to do had the vulnerability not being fixed, what you could have seen just by filtering the status code, you could have seen instead of any 404 or 300 in the status code, there will be something known as 200. It would been there. Okay, but somehow they have fixed the vulnerability, I guess. So that's why now I can't show this particularly. But I have showed you the how to perform this attack or how to test this. Okay, like the brute forcing thing for website for any 2FA panel. So that's it for this particular thing. I'll just turn off the clock. Okay, so let's move on to another part or another way of bypassing OTP. It is brute forcing a stay logged in cookie. And I will use Portsuiger to demonstrate this. So let's go to Portsuiger once again. Okay, so here we have been in our lab, brute forcing a stay logged in cookie. So let's access the lab. Okay, so we have been in our lab. Now, do we have a credential? Okay, so we have already given a credential that is winner and Peter. We also have the victim username that is Carlos. So what I have to do, I have to know the password of Carlos. Okay, so what we can go, so we can just go to my account. Okay, at first, let me just clear the history. There are a lot of traffic in it. Let's clear the history in our Bob. And so after now what we can check is I will just turn my Bob suit proxy on. I will just click on winner, and for password I'll just give the password that is Peter. Just let's click on the stay logged in checkbox and let's click on the login. So okay, so we are been on the account page and your username is winner. That's being said. Okay, so let's go to the HTTP history and check the traffic. So this is the request of the login. Okay, and my account page. So there is something cookie is there. So if we just click on this cookie, stay logged in cookie. Okay, and you can see in the inspector tab, it's being decoded from base64. So this was base64 encoded, and we can see it's like winner. That is our username is there, and followed by some number, which I presume it's kind of hash, I guess. So what its hash can be? So let's make a rough case. Like our password was Peter, right? So let's check the basic MD5 hash of our password. I will give Peter as get hash. So the hash is 51DC and string 770 at rest. And if we check, so we can see it's the same hash. So actually, this is the password, but in hash form. So our stay logged in cookie is nothing but our username and password and the hash of our password, and that is further being base64 encoded. Okay, so this is something we can actually take advantage of. Like we can supply a list of passwords, and then what we can do by supplying a default password list, and then we can turn it in the password into the hash and then encode it with the base64, and then we can feed it to the particular login page.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah,
Sir, from where did you crack this hash?
I didn't crack this hash. You can also, if you want to crack this hash from, I just made a wild guess, but if you want to crack this hash, go to crackstation.net. Let me just, it's a good site to crack your hashes actually. So just copy your hash. Sorry, why can't I copy the hash? Achha, they don't allow it to copy from inspector. Okay, okay. So let me copy this from, copy the login cookie. Just go to decoder, paste it. Let's copy the hash. See, it was Peter. But what I did actually, I just made a wild guess because I saw that the username is winner. So it might be, I thought that the hash might be of its password is Peter. So I just used the hack tool. So the hack tool is actually an extension where it comes with a lot of features. So I went to the hashing function and just typed Peter, and I generated the hash of Peter and I checked it. So I'm just cross-checked it. Okay, that's how I did. But you can just use crackstation.net to dehash anything, or make sure the hash doesn't have any salt. If it had any salt in its prefix, then crackstation.net will be useless. You have to use hashcat for that to crack that particular hash. Anyway, so what I was telling. So we just need to proceed to bypass it, right? Okay. So what we can do, we just have to log out, I guess. Hmm. So just let's log out of your account. Let me keep the buff suit on actually. And I will just, let's just do one thing. Let's just send this particular thing to intruder. I'll just cross check one thing from intruder, like if we can really do all the automated process, like if we can generally quoted the password with MD5 hash, then further quote it with a base 64. Okay, encode it with base 64. I will try to do this thing in intruder. I will try to do it in encoder. Okay, so what I will do here,
Sir, what is the name of the extension that you just showed us to us?
hack tools.
Hack tools. Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go to the payload. And this we don't need to add anything, so we can add a simple Peter because it was our I know our own password, right? It was already been supplied. So I'm just checking one thing. Like we can if we can generally do this from Bob suit. So what I will do, I need to add an hash. So we need to do MD5 it was show. So what is MD5? M will come. Okay, so MD5. Okay, so after that, I will try to add after the MD5 as we need to add the prefix that is spinner. So okay, further we have to encode it with base 64, right? So we done the payload processing. So now we'll go to the options tab, and what I will do simply perform a grep match. As we have seen after login, there is an update email features. And the update email features above it, there was your username. Okay, so we can use the presence. There was an up with the update email button. We can use this button to determine whether we have successfully boot for the cookie. So we'll try to abuse that feature too. So how we can abuse that feature? I just use the grep match function of bug. So I will add update email and I have flagged it. Okay. So what I will do is we don't need 200 and just keep it in our default resources and we can just start our attack and we can see that it's our occurring. If we see the request, we can see the intruder is processing it. Okay, that means we can perform an attack with this functionality, like with the intruder, like by whole customizing it, by like using the hashes and then encoding it and all. So what I can simply do, I can simply perform brute force on the password or password spraying. It's also known as password spraying. I will try to do the password spraying thing. So in this case, we need to know the password of Carlos, right? And we have already been supplied a list of password. In real life side, what you will do, you will just use the default password from checklist. So if you know about checklist, you see checklist, common credential or default credentials are there. See, there are a lot of default credentials. You can use this on real life side. And it's also applicable for bug bounty, like all the default password of checklist. They are valid unless whole brute forcing is out of scope for a particular program. Generally, they are valid. So I will open the password list in a new tab and I will try to copy all this password actually. Okay, and I will just clear it and just paste it all. The password we have just copied. Now we have to edit the prefix I also guess because the username is Carlos. So we'll just give it Carlos. Now what we can do, we'll just brute force it once again Like just start our attack. And we can see in between 302 there is a 200. You can also filter this out by status code, like there is only one 200 response. So generally, if you are actually if you are like curious enough to know what was the password, you just actually can copy it. By copying it, just go to decoder, like this was the corresponding hash, and you can crack it in crackstation.net, I guess. Jessica was the password of the curlers. Okay, so that's how we can successfully retrieve the password, but our lab is already solved. So that's it for this particular vulnerability. And I hope you have understood this. So there are also, apart from this, there are other method of bypassing authentication, which include session ID prediction. Sometimes cookies tokens are predictable. You can also use SQLi on login page to bypass, or like the default credentials I have already told about. Also, you can try host header injection, and also there are other logical flaws. Also, their flaws can be in the SSO, or like that is the single sign-on feature, or sometimes some website using SAML. There is a security assessment markup language, so you can there be fault if any fault is there on SAML, and you can able to bypass it. It's also considered under broken authentication. Okay, so also you can sometime bypass through like the if you could do like in my previous Sunday I talked about recon. So in it I have already described about how to perform GitHub recon or JS file recon. So sometimes what happens, the username and password are linked in the JS files and also in GitHub. So you can also use those things to actually bypass any panel, bypass any like login panel or sometimes admin panel too. Okay, so those are also you can use host header injection, or like you can perform to bypass any login page or any reset password features. Okay, so these are generally some methods by which you can bypass authentication. So let me turn up my back proxy for a minute, and let's understand about mitigation, like what we can do to mitigate this any authentication vulnerabilities. So you can use MFA. So the general two is sometime, but we have seen already in case of general two-factor authentication by using mobile number, there might be any flaws in it. So you can you can use Google Authenticator or any other authenticator based services, or like the developer or the website can use these features to mitigate this particular vulnerability. Like things can be there in mobile numbers, but things won't be there in case of a Google Authenticator. But still, like response manipulation will still can be there on it if the particular feature is not being implemented correctly. So again, the secure coding is also important for it. Okay, validate input from user at the client as well as the server side. So this is the for things like response manipulation. Like just by changing the response on the client side, like changing it to whatever value we desired, and it's being not by not validating it from server side, will result in broken authentication features in with response manipulation. So we need to validate the input from the server side as well. Okay, use TLS encryption for web requests and requests. So using of HTTPS is essential for getting the request and response. Otherwise, an MITM could have been performed. So what is MITM? Man in the middle attack. Like any attacker can be present in between and can use Wireshark to intercept all of the request and response, and can therefore abuse the features. Okay, so always use HTTPS, that's SSL, encrypt sensitive data in data store, use HTTP post method while playing with sensitive information. So suppose there is a page where you are giving your password and the server is using GET request to process it. So in GET request, what will happen? The password will be there in the URL. So anyone can do what a person can do. He can simply use tools like Gao or Webpack URL to get all the passwords of the other account. Okay, so don't use get URL, use post method. So don't use get method actually. So use post method to send any sensitive data. Okay, and also like consider countermeasures for brute force attack and credential wasting. Apply rate limit for brute force attack or any things like any captcha. Put captcha in place for defending against brute force attack or credential harvesting. Consider using proven third-party authenticator provider rather implementing your own. Like I have told, use Google Authenticator or any verified services like it. Avoid default exception rendering by technology. Okay. Also, you can browse to this link, put figure link to learn more about authentication mitigation, like the vulnerabilities like the mitigation regarding to authentication vulnerabilities. Okay, so that's it. Let's look at some references or hackathon report regarding it. So let me just open it in a new tab and let's understand what is. So here what is the person has did. He has created a account on this concrete CMS or whatever the website is. Then he requested a password reset link in his email. Okay, but he didn't use it. He just requested for a link. Then he logged in with desired password. So he logged in his own account, then changed the password several times. And after that, he changed the password so many times up to. And what it did, it destroyed all the active session. And here, in my case, I have made up to 10 password changes. So he have changed his password 10 times in his settings. So after
Sir,
several
what is
password,
Concrete 5 account?
I am just reading a report. Please just don't interrupt in the middle. Just let me complete this one. Then you can ask it. Okay. So just don't interrupt in middle. Please let me complete it. Then I'm going back to your question. So after several password changes, what he did, you can use that password setting. So there is a difficult logical flaws in it. So what he was doing, the attacker did. So he requested for a password reset link in his concrete 5 page, and then he logged in into his own account and he changed the password like for 10 times. So what was the logical for it? Though it was destroying all of the current active sessions, but with changing the account with changing the password 10 times, what it's doing, it was the session like the password reset link which were already in it like sent to its email was still being valid though we have changed the password 10 times. So what an attacker can do, so like if an attacker gets to any victim's email, like any compromised email account of a victim, get to any compromised email account of a victim, so he can use the previous reset link of the owner. Okay, so like even the password, even the like the victim has changed his password like for 10 times even, he can use any old link to change victim's password of any particular account or like particular here on this concrete CMS web application. So that is a complete logical flaw in the forgot password or the reset password link thing. So this is another example of broken access control. Okay, so before going on to the next report, so what you were asking, can you just please explain me or just tell me once again? So where were it?
Sir, I got my answer. Actually, I asked what was the Concrete 5 account. Then I got to know that it was a company name.
Yeah. It was a company name. Okay.
Well, Agniva, just I pasted some questions which are
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
audience also.
Additional account pistol. Yeah. Actually, I have in it the question you have told. Actually, I will tell in the broken access control section, the authorized part. I
No.
had in my agenda. It is
Oh, okay.
so. Yes, well, how do we prevent this kind of attack? So mitigation, I just told, I guess, how to prevent this kind of attack. Speakers, bottom bottle speaker system specs. The brute force is way too fast than mine. No, actually, it's not dependent on my space. Actually, I use 200 threads in it. If you have noticed in my boxwood configuration, what I did in the intruder actually, I have used here 200 threads. Okay, that's why it was faster. So it's irrespective of your specs, because you can at least perform 200 requests even on like i4 processor also. Up to 200 is okay in it. So yeah, what are other question? How to handle this type of attack? So I told you that you can simply, for brute force attack, you can just simply apply rate limit, but make sure you implement rate limit properly, as there can be a lot of rate limit bypass. Like sometimes what happens, not only you have to limit it from a large number of requests, you have to also to limit it on a particular person, like a particular user. Or what it will happen if you just limit it from, if you are just blacklisting only an IP, so a person can simply use any extension like uh, there is a lot of IP rotator, or he can use simply a VPN. We can live to bypass rate limit. So also you have to implement like blacklist a particular user also. Okay, or you have to limit the user to send only this amount of requests. In the case how to bypass captcha, so basically bypassing captcha is also same method. There are 2 or 3 methods to bypass captcha actually I have seen. So first of all, you can check for how to bypass captcha is just intercept the request of the captcha and just delete the value of captcha. So like there will be a captcha value, right? Captcha is equal to something something. So delete it, the value of captcha, and just send the request and see the server is accepting or not. Secondly, what you can do, you can make another account, like create a second account and intercept the request of this, like intercept its request of the login, and just replace the captcha value of user 1 to user 2, and just check the server is accepting or not. Okay, so this is the second method. And third method you can use is by changing the value in the response, like whatever I told in case of the normal response manipulation, you try to do it with captcha too. So these are the three methods you can generally look to bypass captcha. Or you can just remove the whole captcha token and check like the whole parameter of the captcha, and you can check whether server is bypassing it or not. Okay, so these are the some of the methods you can use to bypass captcha. I think I have go through all of the question. Why we should avoid using Buzzsuit crack version? This is a actually very not a good question. Actually, you can use Buzzsuit, or you can do anything of your choice. Yeah, use GPU instead of CPU. Yeah, use Turbo into Dart. Yeah, you can use Turbo into Dart. Okay, so I think I have done with the questions. So let's look at the second report actually. The endpoint notary. So you can see here the endpoint notary.acronis.com blocks access to the panel if you are not an authenticated user. So there is this particular domain of Acronis where you just can't access this if you are not an authentication user. Mode is possible to access some function of by ID. So if so, what the person is doing actually, he is adding .html at the end of it, and after adding .html at this end, the person actually can visit this website without being authenticated. So this was the this was the flaw in it, and then the attacker has used this particular flaw to exploit this vulnerability. Okay, so he has just appended .html after the subdomain notary.acronis.com, and he has successfully got all the features of, or he has successfully accessed the domain. Okay, that is for it, this particular report. So I will just like to give a, that's all for actually broken authentication, but I will also like to give a general introduction of what is WAUth, because WAUth vulnerabilities are sometimes also conditioned or considered under broken authentication. So what is WAUth? So WAUth is a commonly used authorization framework that enables websites and web application to request limited access to a user account on another application. Crucially, WAUth allows the user to grant this access without exposing their login credential to the requesting application. This means user can fine tune which data they want to share rather than having to hand over full control of account to a third party. So all these things might sound very difficult to you. So let's learn this in a very layman term. What is WAUth? So let's suppose you are going to a you are going, let's suppose you are going to a club or party club, okay, or a bar house. So you are going to a bar house or a party club, and you are suppose not properly, you don't have a valid ID card, or you don't have something like that. Okay, and you are trying to poke your way into the club, and suppose the bouncer of the club is resisting you. He's not giving your way to go into the club. He's telling you, just show me your ID, otherwise you can enter this club. And just like any typical other person, you can try to use your power. Like you can tell, you suppose you tell like my family is this, or I know a certain person, or like you can tell like something like mara mera chacha vidhayak hai, and you just proceed to tell his name and your name. And after that, what the bouncer did, suppose he made a call to that person. Supposedly, let's consider that bouncer know your chacha, who's actually Vidayak, and he called him and get to know about your identity. And then he lets you in. So this whole process of you without showing your identity to the bouncer, rather he gets your identity from a third person, which is here, your chacha, Vidayak, is letting you inside that particular house club. Okay. So this thing is whole known as what, and zero auth authentication. Okay. So this is how an auth works. You might have seen in the lot of accounts, like in lot of web application, like login with Facebook or login with Google. So what actually you are doing after you are just typing, you are clicking on login with Google too, you are clicking your Google account. And after that, what the service is doing, is actually fetching your details from the Google and is allowing you to sign up for an account or log into an account of that particular website. So this is the zero auth. And what are the some of the vulnerabilities that can arise in auth are generally like, sometimes a different, suppose in place of you a different person can come and actually just give your email address and not any other details. Okay, and suppose he get logged in into that particular website with the features of sign in Google, then there must be any vulnerability in the auth part. Okay, so there are a lot of actually vulnerabilities like implicit grant flow, and there are things can be like pre-account takeovers and lots of it. But we are just not going into that part of the section because it's a completely a different part. But since it also related to authentication, so I just thought to explain a little bit of what and these vulnerabilities in broken auth. Okay, so I think that's the part for broken auth. So let's, after that we'll just move on to broken access control, or BAC. So still now any question for broken authentication? You can just ask. Okay. Is there any indicator for brute force vulnerable side, so that we have to perform attack on only vulnerable side? Is there any indicator? No, there is no indicator for brute force vulnerable side. Like, yeah, you can make a simply nuclear template to which, like, to test whether there is any rate limit or not by sending like 200 requests and checking it response. You can just create a template in nuclei and just scan it with it to check any kind of protection on it. That's it, I guess. I mean, you have to generally go manually. There is no such thing like indicator for brute force vulnerable site attack. Okay, so yeah, I think we are moving on to our next section, that is the broken access control. Okay, so what is broken access control, or BAC? Broken access controls are a commonly encountered and often critical security vulnerability. Design and management of access control is a complex and dynamic problem that applies business, organizational, and legal constraint to a technical implementation. Access control design decisions have to be made by humans, not technology, and the potential for errors is high. Okay, so, and what are the type of access control vulnerabilities? Like, there can be classified into mainly vertical access control, horizontal access control, context dependent access control. So vertical access control are mechanisms that restrict access to sensitive functionality that is not available to other type of users. Horizontal access controls are mechanisms that restrict access to resources to the user who are specifically allowed to access those resources. And context-dependent access control restrict use access to functionality and resources based upon the state of application or the user interaction with it. So this sound a little more complex. Let's understand it more easily. So what is vertical access control? So suppose there is a website which has an, just like I told in the broken out also, like which is an admin functionality and a normal user functionality. So suppose in that website, as a normal user, you are able to do something which you are supposed to not, like only an admin can do it. And but somehow with the help of a flaw, by exploiting a flaw, you are accessing something which only an admin can as a normal user. So this is comes under vertical access control vulnerabilities. And what is horizontal access control vulnerabilities? Then suppose there are in that same website there are two users, user one and user two, which has the same privilege. Like both are normal user and they don't have any extra privilege. And suppose being a user one, you are able to access something of user two. So if you can do that, then it's an horizontal access control vulnerability. And context dependent access control means suppose to visit us, suppose user one made something private, and to visit that private thing or private depository of that site, he has made certain rules that you have to append this location or have to append this method. And suppose by somehow you are able to perform the same thing from user 2 by adding some location header or adding some or changing some method from get to post or put to delete or anything, you are able to doing that by not changing any user id or any particular constant id or GUID of a request, but by appending some URL or appending some extra headers or changing the method, and you are getting the sensitive information of other user, then it means it's a context dependent access control vulnerability. Okay, so before that I will like to dive into the practical and let's understand how many types of, like what are the different types of access control vulnerabilities we can see or we can have. So I will also take a reference of force trigger for this or two. So let's go to the port trigger and we'll go to the under access control vulnerability and we'll see the lab of unprotected admin functionality. So let's access this lab. So what is then this lab has an unprotected admin panel. Solve the lab by deleting user Carlos. So we have to visit the admin panel of this lab. Okay. So how we can do that? So let's go to a common endpoint. Let's type append hash admin at the end and we can see not found. Okay. So let's see if something is there in robots.txt. Okay, so we can see there's it's diesel says administrator panel. So this is endpoint. Let's try this endpoint here. And as you can see, we have successfully been on the admin panel of this particular lab. Okay, and our job is to delete Carlos. So you can simply delete Carlos here, and the lab is being solved. So this is known as unprotected admin functionality. So what here it should be actually in a site, there should have been any authenticated mechanism. Like you shouldn't have to access like administrator panel directly. Like you can see it's completely unauthenticated. So there should be a verification page, like where it should ask for username and password or anything. Okay, so it's not there in this particular site. So that's how we can bypass it to visit the admin panel. Let's close it. Let's learn something about vertical access control vulnerabilities. So let's do this one. And So it says that this lab has an admin panel has slash admin which identifies administrator using a forgeable cookie. Solve the lab by accessing. You have to visit the admin panel and you have to delete the card log. We are also given an one account winner and Peter. Okay, just just let me go to Bobsuit and just clear all the unnecessary traffic and just turn my intercept on. Basically, I'll just go to my account and just you already have one credential given. Click on login. Let's go to the HTTP history and let's check all the URLs, right? To check for anything juicy. Okay, so there is something like this. Admin equal to false is there. Okay, okay. So in this login page, after clicking on the after giving the username and password, this is asking to redirect to my account and setting a cookie admin equal to false. Okay, so what we can try to do, we can send this request to repeater, and if I change from admin equal to false to admin equal to true, let's see and send after sending this request if we can access the admin account or that particular page of admin. So I guess we have successfully accessed our admin panel by changing the cookie value. No, or we have not.
ठीक है चलो
So just a minute. Hmm. I guess try to send the request once again. Okay, so let's just go to the admin. I think I just forgot. And like try to send the request again. And after that, okay, we think we are successfully gone into the admin panel. Now I guess, yeah. Now we can simply delete the card loss. Let's copy it and delete. So as you can see, we have successfully solved the lab by just changing the parameter. And so what I did exactly here, so this lab has was an admin panel slash admin somewhere in it's hidden. So what I did, so I just logged in with a normal credential that is which was already supplied to me. And after being entered into the my normal account, I checked all of the requests in my buff suit, and in one of the requests, I have seen that there is a cookie, but it's saying something like admin equal to false is there in cookie. So what I did, I sent this request to repeater, and I changed the value of admin equal to false to admin equal to true, and I sent the request. Okay, so by sending the request, I actually got the permission as an admin, and after that, I just browsed onto my ad slash admin. Followed by that, I just deleted what was being told to me, and that's how I completed the lab. And that's how you can try to replicate this same on a normal website if there's something juicy in cookie. Okay, so let's move on to some other part, and let's do this one. User role can be modified in user profile. So Let me just clear the history once again. Let's just access the lab. Okay. So just hover over to my account. Okay, so we have already given a credential, I guess, winner Peter. Just include this one and just log in. So let's just check all the URLs too. Okay, so we have a lot of to we'll do it later. Okay, so let's check the request from login. Okay, this is there. So still now there is nothing important, I guess. Okay, so there is an email option where you can update email. Let's change this to something like hackaron@gmail.com and let's update it. Back in our HTTP history, let's look for the okay. So in this particular request, change email. In the response, we can see there is a API key which is already of our particular winner account, and there is something like role ID is there. Okay, so let me send this request to repeater, and what I will try to do, I will try to append the role ID thing. So let's just copy it and paste it in the JSON body of the request. I will change it to 0 and I will check for the response. Okay, role ID must be in range 1 to 127. Okay, so let's change it to 2 and I will send the request. And we see, I guess, role ID 2 is being applicable. So if we just follow the redirection, we have been on our accounted. Okay, so I think this role ID 2 has much function. Maybe it can be belong to some admin, I guess. I think it was there. Okay, so yeah, it was already there in our directory. This lab has an admin panel as admin. It is only accessible to logged in with role ID equal to 2. So we can see we can successfully access the anything because our role ID is already being 2 by appending here. So what we can simply do, we try to access slash admin here. So after sending the request, we are getting a 200 okay response, and you can see we have accessed the admin panel. So what I can simply do, we can just delete the Carlos and we can solve the remaining lab. Okay, so that's it for this particular one, and our lab has been solved. So let's move on to the next part. Let's learn about basic IDOR. Okay, so IDOR indirect object reference is the same thing, kinda. It's also come under broken access control. And in general, IDOR, but basically, what in case of IDOR is different than the privilege escalations are. Like if you try to make a report in HackerOn, like and you are getting any access control vulnerabilities, so which will you put under IDOR and which will you put under access privilege escalation? So suppose where if you are able to access something just like in this previous two scenarios of the lab we have seen, we are trying to access something of admin. So if you have something accessed of any account which have higher privileges than that of a normal account, then it will be under privilege escalation vulnerabilities. And those which have almost same level of user, like if you can access being a user 1, you are able to access something of user 2, then it will become under IDOR. Okay, so let's access the lab. So here we have to find a password for Carlos. Okay. Till then, let me clear the history. Okay. So let's just go to my account. Okay, so we don't have something. So let's go to live chat system. There is something like live chat is there. Okay, so it's stored logs. Okay, so chat is stored log. So there's something might be juicy here. So if you type hello and click on view transcript, okay, something like 2.txt has been there. Okay, so the whole chat is being downloaded. So let's know the link of its copy download link. And so if we type something like 1.txt and let's see what's in there and we can access it. Okay, so 1.txt has been downloaded here. And you can see that we have accessed something sensitive, like some password is there. And so we will try to copy this and I will try if this password is applicable for Carlos account or not. So I will put the username as Carlos and password we have got recently, and I will try to log in with it. And you can see we have successfully visited the account of Carlos and we have successfully solved the lab. Okay, so this is of general an IDOR or insecure direct object reference. So we have already covered the part of vertical access control and horizontal access control. So let's see an example of a context-based access control. Okay, so for a context-based access control, let's choose this one. And I'll try to access the lab. Okay, so for this thing, let's see what is we have been told. Lab control access to certain admin. So there is an administrator functionality, and we have given already a credential for an administrator account, and also have been credential for the normal account. So we have to access. So with the help of the normal account, we have to access the control of an admin account, I guess. So that's it we have to do. Okay. So I'll just turn off it. It will be better. Let's clear this also. So miss, I will log into the normal account first. That will be completely easy. No, let's okay. Just instead of this, just log in the admin account. That will be better, I guess. Administrator is there, and it is admin. It will be good. Okay, so the administrator account look like this, but it has an admin panel actually. Let's pass everything to Bard, so it will be easier for us. Okay, so if you just click on upgrade Carlos as normal user, it will upgrade it, and if you just see, there will be the response will be 302 found with admin roles. There is only one cookie, which is there is session cookie is there for it, and there is nothing much. Okay, so what I will try to do, I will try to open this same link in a private window. So I will try to log in here with the normal account, that is Carlos. This means applied to us, no, winner or Peter. Okay, so our normal account is winner or Peter. Okay, credential. Okay, so it doesn't have an admin panel. So one thing I will try to do, I will for the admin accounts, admin panel, I will send this particular request to repeater, and I will check. Okay, so we can access the admin panel through it for the admin account, and but I will do another thing. I will send a request of winner for its cookies. Let's send it to repeater, and this is the cookie of winner. Okay, so so what I will do, I will try to browse this particular directory. I'll try to browse this particular directory as a normal user. Let's do this from here actually, it will be better. And you can see it's unauthorized. We can't access admin page as a normal user. Just so I will just send this particular request to repeater. And if we compare the both the request, we will see in the admin request there is something extra. It is a referrer header, which is not there in case of the card loss. So I think this referrer header is being appended to the admin request, and that's how we can access the admin panel. So what if I append this header here? So it was there after accept encoding. You can place it anywhere actually. And if I changes it to winner for upgrading, if we send the request, you can see we have successfully accessed the admin panel. See, we are being as an administrator, and we have also changed value of winner to admin. Okay, so I think we have access, and also we have completed this lab. So that is an example of reference-based access control or context-based access control. What I have shown, this referrer header is actually directing you to the admin page. Okay, not any cookies. So that's it for this particular referral-based access control vulnerabilities. And these are all the type of access. I have given example of all the type of access control vulnerabilities that you may encounter. Okay, so let's try to find this on a real life website too. For example, let's go to a website like this. Let me delete this thing. And let me also clear the proxy part, history part of our buff suit. So this is our website, real life. And what I will do, I will try to register an account here. Just give anything here. I will try to fill up this form as random. Okay. Okay. Register for an account. Okay, so this is a normal account. So if you can browse, so there are a lot of things we can actually do. Continue shopping. It's a kind of shopping website, I guess. So if you go to this particular page of account and let's click on this, that is updating the address or everything else. If we go to repeater and we just check for all the this, we will see that after clicking on the amend business detail, that is changing the address or everything else, there is an customer ID 1141. So this is a possible indicator that there might be an IDOR. Like if we can change this 1141 to something else, can we change it? So let's send this request to repeater. So instead of 1 200, okay. So if I change this 41 to 40 and send the request, we actually see we are getting 200 okay response for the 302. There is a chance that there is an IDOR actually, and by we have actually changed the value, that is the business name, email, and everything related to it for a different customer. Okay, so how we can confirm this, because as we don't know who is the original customer of 114 belong to the ID 1140. So we will register for another account, but before that I will need to know the email address of this. Okay, so let me open Google Chrome actually, or actually you can just open a private window and let's register for another account here. Just fill all the input, register it. I'm in personal details. So just take a close note on all of these details. I'll try to intercept the request. So this belong to the 1143. Okay. And our previous one actually belong to the 1141. Okay. So what I will try to do here, before that, take a close look on our 1141 customer ID details. The name was Anaya Hicks, Gabe Blackwell, and this email, and this was the address line. Okay. So what I will do, I will send this request to repeater, and instead of 1141, I will type 1143. I will type 1141, and I will send this request, and I will drop the request here. Now, if we and we can see we have actually changed the all the details of one of the account which has customer ID 1141. And if you check it with the this one, there is the second account, both are now same. See, so that means there was an IDOR in this particular endpoint. So that's how you can look for an IDOR. So if there is any kind of parameter which have any ID, or there is any kind of user ID, or there is GU or any UUID or GUID, you can try to change those things. Okay. So this is a potential case of IDOR on a real life site. I just given demonstration. Now, this is the basically how you can exploit any IDOR. Now I will show you how you can automate your IDOR finding. Okay, so how you automate your IDOR in a when working on a project or working on actually Bhagwantu website, as creating two accounts separately and then checking, going back to one account and checking the details of another account. There's actually a lot of process. So what I do in general, how I automate everything, I will show you now. So just go to Bobsuit, go to the extended tab, go to BI App Store, and just search for the something known as Autorize extension. Okay, you need to install it on your bar. I have already installed it on our bar. And for this thing also, you need to go to the option tab. You need to download Jython from internet, and you have to specify the part of your Jython file, because without Jython, you can't able to use Autorize. Okay. So after configuring your Jython file on your bar, just download the extension from extender BIFT store, Bubsuit store, Autorize, and go to extension. Just click on Autorize and just load it on your Bubsuit. I have already loaded it. I'll go to history and clear everything. So let's visit Juice Shop. I will use Juice Shop for this demo. There's a question. Authorize. Yeah. OUT or is it city? Authorize. Okay. So I will use this as a victim account. I have already logged into this account. Okay. So I think it was, I have to log in again, I guess. Okay. So now it's there. I will open a private window. And first I will log in here as an attacker. So just log in with Google. Okay, so I will turn my buffer intercept on to capture the request of an attacker so that I can take their cookies. Or the like I can use the cookies of attacker. Okay. So let's do something like here. Like click on attack or do something like it will be enough, I guess. Okay, so we have already got the cookies of an attacker. Okay, we have only the or anything. Was it enough? Let's use the search bar for something. Something like Apple. Like that. Try to add it in basket. I'll just check out. So okay, now I got the proper cookies of an attacker. So we have got the cookie and there is an authorization. So let's just copy this part whole and just go to authorize and place it in the cookies section. So just remove this gibberish part, that is user agent. We don't need the user agent or accept language here, as the authorization token and the cookies, these are enough to authenticate as a different account. Okay, so I will uncheck this one. I will add filter only scope items and I'll go to the proxy and I will add this to scope. So I'll just go to the target, use advanced scope, and I'll just add it to scope. Just remove the port and file because we need the juiceshop.heroku app.com. The whole website is in our scope. Okay, so we have fixed the scope and it will only filter the scope items. We have also configured or authorized for it. Now, particularly, we don't need our attacker windows. Now, what I will do, I will turn my authorize on and I will browse the website just as a normal user. And authorize will do its job in the backend. Okay, so I'll try to browse this one as a normal user. Let's do something like yeah, so it's not going, I guess. Okay, so site is actually giving some problem anyway. So we'll try to add something in our basket. Let's add this. Or if we check for the request data export, we can click on JSON and you can request for data. There is no captcha. Hmm. Okay. I think it's better just to just log into our account once again. That this site is very unstable, I guess. Let's just turn off and just log in once again because it's clear all the authorize it will be good. Just log out, log in once again, it will be better. Okay. Now I'll turn my proxy on and I will turn my authorize once again. Now probably the problem won't be there. Okay, so these are things we added to our basket. And just go to profile. So if we set a username something like this, let's set a username like victim. Set username. Or we can upload any picture also. Let's just and can go back. So what we are doing, we are just browsing the site as an we're doing something as a normal user. We're not doing anything else. So we have changed this thing. We will try to visit as an account. We will try to visit the order and payment page. There is no order history right now. So we'll try to request data export. Let's click on this. Very good. And that's we also done with the request data export features. So let's order something once again. And let's add it to basket. And let's add this to our okay. So we have a basket of 5 items, I guess. Now we try to remove one or two things. I'll just remove one. We'll try to remove another item. And this we can go for checkout. Just proceed to checkout. Add some random address. Okay. So and if we just proceed to submit, and if we continue, let's do something. And if we just pay like this, okay. So now let's go to our authorize, and we'll look onto those functionality which has both enforced and which has is enforced and enforced into. Okay, we'll not look on the URLs of the red ones or which have only one red ones. We'll look onto the URLs of which have both green or one green and one orange. Let's look into this one. Let's look at the request. So the original request was this, that we are sending this request as a victim, and the response we are getting 200 response, okay, and we are getting this success, okay. And in the modified request, that is, we are sending the same request by just changing the cookies as an attacker, and the response you are giving getting same. But as there is nothing sensitive data in it, we are just adding things to basket, we are getting the same response. So that means, as the response of both are same, as both are getting 200, okay, and unauthenticated, for unauthenticated we are getting 40 unauthenticated. That means as an attacker can add anything to basket on behalf of user, okay, as both are having same responses. Another, if you look at the API basket items, if you just look at the response and request, this is to just check for what are the items present in the basket, and this is not important. So there are some false positive also in it. So you have to check every request and response manually. So for this response and request, these are also the basket item. This both will be same. Okay, so let's look at the interesting URL. Look at the profile page. Okay, so for the profile page, and so what are the original requests? We are looking for the profile. And if you look at the original response and the modified response, both are kind of same. But this one is not much important. So let's look at this one. This one is also not that much useful. So you have to go and check manually all the request and responses. So actually, but this one, by this bypass and import, this one is actually been useful, I guess. Maybe both are redirecting to the profile. And okay, so that means we can actually upload a picture from in behalf of another, actually. That way is being, both are being enforced. You can check for that one too, actually. Okay, this also particular admin application configuration, this particular URL is also response are same. So if we just go further, this user who am I, see, you can actually check for who the user is. No, but this one is not important. Let's look at this one. Hmm. So this data of these languages, you can change the language. As you can see, both are more or less same. Or this is 200 and this is 304 modified. Another is also 200. That means you can actually change the language of one user on behalf of another. So this is another IDOR actually I've encountered. So for data export, it's not. For the estimate captcha, you see both are same. Actually, we can got the captcha. So actually, we can perform a captcha by, we can change the captcha or bypass the captcha of user one with user two. This is also with the help of the authorizer detector. So there is also an IDOR in that functionality too. So this is for, with this we have to go and check all the URLs requests and response to check for potential IDOR in the web application. Like the address chain. This might be C. This one, though it is bypassed and enforced. Okay. So you can see 201 created, 201 created. That means these have been bypassed. Actually, you can change the address. Okay. So if you look for the API product, modified response, or the request was, look for the product. And modified response, you can see both are same. So that means there is also an IDOR at this endpoint. Wallet balance, you can also check the others. No, this one is 401 unauthorized. Okay, this not. This one is 503 service original length. But there are a lot of bypass we have seen. So you have to go and manually check all of the requests modified and original requests, and you have to compare those two. And those which will have same original response and modified response, or both will be same. That means in those cases, there is a chance there are either or escalation or access control vulnerabilities in those URLs or endpoints. Okay. So that's how you can actually automate your IDOR finding with the help of Autorize. So that's for the automation. And what are the IDOR checklists that you should actually follow? So this is a checklist of IDOR. I am giving this link in the chat for your convenience. As so, what you can go and check for IDOR, you can check the user 01, you can change the 1 to 2. You can also try parameter pollution. You can add user is equal to 1 and append a separate user and user equal to 2 to fetch the details of user 2 by being only in user 1. You can list all of the user by appending star at the end. You can also change the older version of API by changing v3 to v1 and can actually get the data of users. You can try add extension that just like I also sold in the just told in the foods browsing for broken authentication also, like the hacker report I showed for .html file. It's kind of like same, but this is for an endpoint like .json, and you are getting authentic or like data of another user by appending .json at the end. You can try to change the methods like changing get to post to put, patch, delete options. Also, you can add trace. It's not been listed there. That trace also. Check if the referral header are used to validate IDs, just like I showed for the context-based access control example. Encrypted IDs, swap GUIDs with numeric IDs of email, and you can follow all these checklists for IDOR. Okay, so this is generally the IDOR checklist I follow. After that, an IDOR mind map, but you should go and try one step by step for finding IDOR in wild. So these are the all of the IDOR mind map techniques that you can check, like changing HTTP method or changing get to post, path reversal, content changing content type and all. So this link I am also giving in the chat. So this is the IDOR mind map. You can check. So what are the mitigations for IDOR? So access control vulnerabilities can generally be prevented by taking a defense in-depth approach and applying the following principle. Never rely on obfuscation alone for access control unless a resource is intended to be publicly accessible, deny access by default. Wherever possible, use a single application-wide mechanism for enforcing access control. At the code level, make it mandatory for the developer to declare the access that is allowed for each resources and deny access by default. Throughout audit and test access control to ensure they are working as they designed. So that's it for this vulnerabilities. Like that's how we have wrapped up the broken access control and broken authentication. And I guess I have explained all of the vulnerabilities in it. And also there are other few topics for IDOR or access control vulnerabilities, but they are actually it's actually a broad subject, actually a lot of things. Actually, if I try to say it will take up more than 3 hours. So that's it for it, guys, today. I hope you have understood everything and I hope you will find useful. And thank you. All the very best. I guess I'm done. So any question you guys have, you can just ask it in chat or you can turn your audio to ask me the questions. Okay. Thank you, Aman. Thank you, everyone. I think it's better to stop share the screen. Terry, the slides is not much important today. Like it has the basic like definition of authentication, basic definition of access control, and its basic mitigation. You can actually find it out in internet. And the important links for the IDER mind map I already told. Is EJPT vote? I have already done CH. Both are exactly like if you go for the value in the market, then you don't need to do EJPT if you have already done CH. Value wise same, but actually EJPT is far actually much more details and things are different in EJPT than CH. Attendance, I don't know about this. Yes, only links are important. Yeah. What methodology you follow? For my bug bounty methodology, just visit my YouTube channel. I will just subscribe to it. Very soon I will be doing a stream for it. Like I will share everything from scratch. How to what methodology represent for. But generally I go by the Jason Haddock's methodology. His methodology I generally follow. If you have heard of J Haddock's. What you suggest, EJPT or CH? What will be more beneficial? EJPT is good, but companies look for CH. But you can actually, if you do OSCP, it's much better. And companies also are accepting OSCP, it's much more. If you want knowledge, go for EJPT. If you want to go for the industry trend or just by the HR trend, go for CH. YouTube channel name. Okay, Yogi Sek. I am just giving the channel name. Sweet. Hmm. Sorry, Cyber Wing. I think I have sent you a direct message for the channel. Shall we practice on live sites to find bugs? Yeah, you can actually, but like you can practice on hackathons on bug bounty platforms, hackathon, bug cloud, integrity, anything. You can just go and perform. But before that, you must solve some lab at least. That is for your own benefits. Benefit. How to choose programs on hackathon? Uh, that is actually go for the ones at first. Go for VDPs. Okay, and choose those VDPs which have comparatively scope is broad. Like there are a lot of things in its scope, and which have less report submitted. Quiz link. Nikhil sir will know about it. How apply my CTF knowledge studio side? Just note down if you are just doing CTF, just note down what you are doing. Like suppose there is a web CTF and you are doing suppose you are have find the flag in a particular directory, particular thing. So how you approach the directory? Just note it down and try to check this same thing in a real life site. But methodology of bug bounty and methodology of CTFs are different. Actually, I was doing CTF back in 2 years ago with my team, and that methodology actually is you can't apply that on bug bounty. Bug bounty mindset is different than CTF. But of course, CTF just increase your logical thinking skills. And so if you're doing CTF, it's good. Project in this field. Project in what? Web application security or the whole ethical hacking field? Just point me out. How much knowledge needed for CH? Just go through the CH materials. That's enough. You don't need anything else. Blue team and both red team both like log analyzer or enumeration automatic tool. Your question is not clear. Project idea. I never done any project actually. I don't have very much idea regarding projects. Actually, so do you manually test for bugs on a wide scope? What a wider scope? No. At first, you have to perform some recon. At least you have to gather subdomains. You have to take a look on the subdomain which are juicy. You have to gather endpoints, everything. So yeah, so after doing the recon thing, I go choose my subdomain which actually look juicy to me. Then I hunt manually on them. How to start with CTF for beginner? Any tip? Practice on try hack me and hack the box. Also, there are a lot of CTF platforms on it. Just go for any beginner level CTF. How much knowledge need for a job as a pen tester? If you are asking this question, then at your point, actually, you need to stay in this field for 6 to 7 months. You will get to know yourself. Uh, Actually, you need to fulfill what the company actually need as a pen tester. But I believe that if you are actually on a have some like if you're in bug bounty field or you have actually done on if you even if you don't have any certification, but if you're at any certain rank, you have certain rank on HTB, and you actually have that particular knowledge of that level, then it will be easy to get a job as a pen tester. But generally, you don't to get direct job as a pen tester. You generally get a job as an analyst, security analyst, or as a VAPT. Yeah, blue team is also in demand, associate threat intelligence, but that's not in my domain. So I can't help you in much regarding blue team. SOC, threat intelligence, CM, radar, Splunk, yeah, these are also very trendy topics actually. Administration, SIM, CM administration. Actually, there are a lot of jobs in it. Also in SOC. So I think I am leaving this chat as you guys please wait for Nikhil sir or Mahadev sir to come as to give you further instruction regarding the like quiz or feedback. So I am taking a leave. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. Have you received swag from Dutch government? No, I have received swag from Sony and others. Still now, Dutch government from swag from Dutch government is on pending.
Sir,
Yeah,
sir, I want to know that how to we learn in coding field because we need scripting and other things.
just learn bash scripting. There's a there is a whole video of bash scripting, like whole from Hackersploit. If you know Hackersploit, he has a whole series on bash scripting. That is enough. And just go and learn a little bit of Python. You can look at the Python course of TCM or any other like Python for ethical. I can just take any basic course, or you can go for YouTube and look for basics of Python for and just make a few tool, one or two out of it. Then you'll understand. Just basic bash knowledge and basic Python knowledge is enough. You don't need much. All the scripting you need is very basic level. Unless you're creating an exploit. Okay, so everyone, goodbye. Please wait for Nikhil sir or Madhav sir to for the further instruction. I am taking the leave. Sir, how do you study in the field? I will tell this to you later on someday. Okay, goodbye everyone. Thank you. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel, Yogi Sek, and follow me on Twitter. Goodbye.